Welcome to the English Matura with JB podcast. In today's explainer, we're unwrapping the true story of Christmas. So, you've probably wondered, right? Why a man in a red suit? Why a tree inside your house? And why December 25th of all days? We all just kind of do these things, but where do they actually come from? You might be surprised by the answers. So let's get into it and figure out what's real and what's just legend.
All right, first up, the man, the myth, the legend, Santa Claus. But before he was this jolly guy in a red suit you see in all the commercials, he was actually a real person. And, well, he looked pretty different from the character we all know and love today.
So, the real person behind the whole Santa legend? His name was Saint Nicholas of Myra. And get this, he wasn't from the North Pole at all. He was a Greek bishop who lived way back in the 4th century in a place we now call Turkey. And the one thing everyone knew him for? He was just incredibly generous.
So this timeline here kind of gives you a snapshot of his life. He was born around 270 AD to a pretty rich family, and he actually became a bishop when he was still quite young. Now, this was a really chaotic time in the Roman Empire, but he just dedicated his whole life to his faith and, most importantly, to helping people out.
So how did this guy become the original gift giver? Well, it all goes back to this one famous story. See, back then, for a woman to get married, her family needed to provide a dowry, basically some money for the groom. There was this poor father who had 3 daughters, but absolutely no money for their dowries. This meant they were facing a really terrible future. So Nicholas wanted to help, but he didn't want to embarrass the family. What did he do? For 3 nights in a row, he secretly snuck over and threw a bag of gold coins into their house. Thanks to him, the daughters were able to get married. And that's it. That act of secret late-night gift-giving is what started the whole legend.
And this chart? It really shows you just how much things changed over the centuries. You've got the real man, a bishop from Turkey, who gave secret gifts to people in need. And then you have the legend, a magical guy from the North Pole with reindeer and elves who brings presents to kids all over the world. So how did we get from one to the other? Well, Dutch settlers brought their stories of Sinterklaas to America. Over time, through poems and stories and, even ads, that name evolved into Santa Claus, and the image completely transformed.
Okay, so that's Santa. But what about the tree? You know, the big evergreen you drag into your living room every year? Well, that tradition is actually way older than you might think. Its roots go back even before Christmas was a thing. So let's rewind, like thousands of years. Long ago, pagan cultures celebrated the winter solstice. That's the shortest day of the year. To do that, they'd bring evergreen branches inside. Why? Well, because evergreens stay green all year, right? They were a symbol of life, a promise that spring would eventually come back. Fast forward to the 16th century, and you have German Protestants who started bringing entire decorated trees inside. But the tradition didn't really explode until 1848, when a picture of Queen Victoria and the British royal family standing next to their Christmas tree was published. After that, boom, everybody had to have one. But those first Christmas trees looked nothing like ours today. No electric lights, no shiny glass ornaments. Instead, the decorations were full of meaning. They'd hang apples on the branches to represent the paradise tree from the story of Adam and Eve. And they'd light actual candles on the tree to symbolize Christ as the light of the world. I mean, it must have looked absolutely beautiful, but can you imagine? Real candles on a dry tree? A total fire hazard. All right, time for our final big question. And honestly, this might be the most debated one of all. We've got the man, we've got the tree, but why that specific date? Think about it. There are 365 days in a year. Why December 25th? If you look in the Bible, it actually never says when Jesus was born. So where did that date come from? It's a huge historical puzzle, and for centuries, experts have been debating it. They've basically come up with 2 main theories. So you have 2 competing ideas here. One is called the history of religions theory, and the other is the calculation theory. And trust me, they come at this from completely different angles. Okay, let's break this down. Theory number 1, the history of religions idea, is all about strategy. It suggests that the early church was pretty smart. They looked at the calendar and saw that late December was already a huge party time for pagans in Rome. You had these massive festivals like Saturnalia and the celebration of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. So the church basically said, hey, let's put our big celebration right here. It gave people a Christian alternative and probably made it a lot easier for them to convert. Makes sense, right? But then you have theory number 2, the calculation theory, which has nothing to do with pagan parties. This one is all about symbolic math.
So some early Christians figured out that Jesus died on March 25th, and there was this ancient belief that great prophets had perfect lives, meaning they died on the same day they were conceived. So if he died on March 25th, he must have been conceived on March 25th. Now, just count forward 9 months from March 25th, and where do you land? December 25th. It's a really cool debate, and honestly, historians still don't agree on which one is right.
So when you put all these pieces together, the man, the tree, the date, a really clear picture starts to form, doesn't it? The main takeaway is this: Christmas traditions aren't set in stone. They never have been. The way we celebrate has been changing and borrowing and evolving for pretty much 2,000 years. What we think of as Christmas today is really this amazing blend of things. It's part history, part legend, part culture. You've got pieces from a Turkish bishop, ancient pagan rituals, German traditions, British royalty. It's all mixed together. It's a celebration that has touched pretty much every corner of the globe and every part of history. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that all our favorite traditions, the ones we take for granted, have these incredibly fascinating and complicated stories behind them. And it kind of makes you think, right? As our own world keeps changing, what new traditions will we add to the mix? What do you think Christmas is going to look like 100 years from now? Definitely something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.